Okay, Nintendo Strikes Palworld. This has gone too far.
Changes made last November were indeed motivated by Nintendo's loss.
On November 30th, 2024, we released a patch, version 0.3.11 for Palworld. This patch removed the ability to summon pals by throwing pal spheres and instead of changed it to a static summon next to the player. Several other game mechanics were also changed with this patch. As many have speculated, these changes were indeed the result of the ongoing litigation. Yeah, dude, so I play Palworld. I like the game. I think it's fun. It is a great game. And I didn't care about like the similarities to Pokemon or anything like that. I think it's, they shouldn't have a fucking monopoly on creature summoning and capturing games. That's bullshit. You shouldn't be able to copyright mechanics like that. If you're calling them Pokemon and there's obvious, like it's an obvious, like if you have a fucking Pikachu in your game, that's a problem, right? There's nothing wrong with. You okay? What'd you do? Oh, it sounded like you're puking. There's nothing wrong with having inspiration from Pokemon as well. I bet these guys are fucking crushed. Like Pokemon is probably like their like one of their favorite games, right? And they just wanted to expand on the genre. They shouldn't hold a monopoly on the genre. It's bullshit. That being said, I do miss throwing the pal spheres and summoning my creatures or my pals, because now they spawn next to me. What if I want to throw them at shit so they're assigned tasks? That was like the main purpose of having the pals be thrown. Like you throw the pal sphere at a fucking tree and the pal starts hammering at the tree and gathering resources, or you throw a pal at an enemy and it starts attacking it. Yeah.
Lawsuit. Now, if you're out of the loop here, the update made pals spawn next to the player rather than spawning from balls. But today's story is not just the confirmation of that, it's also what happens next, because Pocket Pair are now saying that this
So whenever you spawn it, does it run to a position that you're looking at?
November were indeed motivated by Nintendo's lawsuit.
Because that would change it too, like, instead of throwing a physical object at a like a tree or something, you could just like set your cursor on that object. The pal will spawn and then like rush over there like super fast, right? Like so, the pal spawns next to you, but then like its animation like sets it to the position that your cursor's looking at.
Now, if you're out of the loop here, the update made pals
it
spawn
looks like
next to the player
he's running
rather
towards
than
it.
spawning from balls.
Okay.
But today's story is not just the confirmation of that; it's also what happens next, because Pocket Pair are now saying that this is not the end.
Furthermore, we regret to inform you, our players, that with the implementation of patch 0.5.5, we must make yet another compromise from this patch onward. Gliding will be performed using a glider rather than with pals. Pals in the player's team will still provide passive buff to gliding, but players will now need to have a glider in their inventory in order to glide. That's fucked, dude. How are you going to copyright hanging from a fucking a bird or any other flying creature? How can that, why aren't they, like, I gotta know, like, what is Nintendo's fight for this? And weren't most of these, like, gripes or copyrights like, they were made after the fact? Like, they were made after the fact.
More changes are coming to the game, and not because they're changes that players really want to have made. Basically, Nintendo are very much still at it, and Pocket Pair have outlined how they're going to fight back. Thanks to reporting from the specialist outlet GamesFray, we now have some idea of how Pocket Pair plan to defend itself. Now, this comes from filings in February reviewed by GamesFray at the Tokyo District Court. Basically, the plan is to prove that Nintendo should have never been granted their patents in the first place, and this comes down to a pretty simple concept. So Nintendo filed patents in December 2021 that have been iterated on after Palworld released. Now, those most recent patent updates were filed after Palworld came out, but they were, extended from previously filed patents. Now, under patent law, that's allowed, where the principle is that the natural evolution of the patent under, continued development should also be protected. But there's a natural counter to this, and that natural counter is called prior art. And prior art is what Pocket Pair intend to use. So the idea is that prior art
exists. Okay, prior art.
And prior art.
Prior art is every publication or comparable disclosure, such as the presentation in front of a sufficiently large number of people, that prior to the priority date of a given patent application and made information available that potentially renders the patent application meritless or an already granted patent invalid because the claimed invention was not novel as of the priority date, or even if it was novel at the time, lacked the inventive step over what was already public information.
Is what
Fuck, that
Pocket Pair intend to use.
melted me.
So the idea is that prior art existed before the original 2021 filing date, where the combination of two separate mechanics could reasonably give rise to the patent Nintendo holds. So as an example, everyone's pointed to the idea that Pocket Pair's previous game, Craftopia, also had a ball capture mechanic.
Oh,
Pocket
shit.
Pair is not arguing that Craftopia
I didn't know they had a another game.
alone means that Nintendo never should have been granted that patent, but by acknowledging Craftopia plus the influence of other existing games, the patented mechanic could be arrived at naturally through regular development processes,
True.
as opposed to, say, nabbing it from Nintendo and infringing upon their patent. Basically, as GamesFray puts it, when you add any of the following to Craftopia, you get to the same place that Palworld did and that they're accused of infringing Nintendo's design with.
They had a previous game that was a Breath of the Wild knockoff. Okay, I got you. I mean, shit, those were popping up everywhere, man. Like the, what is it? What's that gacha game? With the anime waifus and shit. You go around and collect them. Like, that was a Breath of the Wild knockoff too, wasn't it? Like, mechanic-wise.
So let's just make that feel real by
Genshin
bringing in
Impact.
some actual other video games, right? So games like Rune Factory 5, Titanfall 2, and Pikmin 3
Gooning
Deluxe
Impact.
all feature a character releasing monsters/capture items in a direction by releasing a button. Yes, your Titan in Titanfall, I suppose, is a Pokemon. Jokes aside, you get the point, though. Pikmin, Far Cry, and Tomb Raider all highlight that you have a variety of throwable objects as part of their mechanics. Meanwhile, then, you've got Pocket Souls, the mod for Dark Souls, Octopath Traveler, and Final Fantasy, all showing that you can pick targets on a field with a visual representation of how successful you might be. Okay, so those are broad examples, they're varied examples. I guess there's also the example of the Pokemon GTA mod. But basically, it's no coincidence that Nintendo games find themselves present in these lists. Pocket Pair are basically banking on the validity of Nintendo's patents being granted as their main argument here, right? That they shouldn't have been granted, that is, that they're not valid. And the more that they can muddy the water around whether Nintendo should have them, the better the chance that the whole case gets thrown out. But there's a question to be asked of this situation. The Japanese lawsuit is ongoing, and these changes won't necessarily stop that right now. So why make them, right? Why would Pocket Pair do all of this whenever it might seem they're making some progress? Well, that's because they might not influence Japan, but they might have an impact on the potential
US,
American lawsuit. Fun situations going down in the US, many of them in fact, but let's just stay in the patents for now. So generally, whenever someone loses 22 out of 23 arguments, that's not really seen as victory, right? You'd think that, but it's not necessarily the case in patent law, and I've got some good news here. GameFray's Explain It to Me Like I'm 5 series. That means that the rest of us can actually understand what's going on. And yes, thanks to them, because this stuff can be so goddamn dense. So, per their explainer, Nintendo have been making more moves in the US with applications to the US Patent and Trademark Office. Now, these take a while to resolve, so today's set of updates will range from starting back in 2022 through to February of 2025. And to simplify things, GameFray explained that Nintendo have been recently granted several patents by the office. Patent 1 relates to capturing a character in a field environment, so
Storage medium, storing game program, game system, game apparatus, and game processing method. In a first mode, an aiming direction in a virtual space is determined based on a second operation input, and a player character is caused to launch in an aiming direction an item that affects a field character disposed on a field in a virtual space based on a third operation input. In a second mode, the aiming direction is determined based on the second operation input, and the player character is caused to launch in an aiming direction a fighting character that fights based on the third operation input. Jesus Christ.
like any recent Pokemon game. Patent 2 is about players exchanging items, and Patent 3 is about using an aimed item to is about players exchanging items.
A placed designated by a player on a user interface is set according to an operation input. An item or character that the player is to transmit to another information processing apparatus for exchange and designated according to an operation input in the exchange. Information about the place and information about an item or character are transmitted as information about a thing to be exchanged to another information processing apparatus. Information about the place, designation. And, okay, this is basically like changing Pokemons or just items in general. They're trying to copyright trading. They're trying to copyright trading. That's like any game. That's any fucking MMO or anything like that. Trading. That's crazy.
Items, and patent 3 is about using an aimed item to capture a fighting character. Rather obviously, all 3 of these could be applied to Palworld, with the latter 2 filed in 2022, while the first was filed in May 2024 after Palworld's release. Now, these are all matters of record, but they strengthen any case that Nintendo wants to make in the US about Palworld. And as for the losses, well, those losses are actually new. So 22...
If this goes through, I feel like this is going to change so much shit, dude. This is going to change so much shit in the game industry. This is going to gatekeep a lot of stuff. Being able to patent mechanics. Or like similar mechanics. Like, I understand, like, if you straight up rip something, you know what I mean? Like, if so I'm a big Gears of War fan. If I were to make a fucking top-down 2D shooter that had like Gears of War style wall bouncing, right? Just Gears of War style wall bouncing, that could be an issue.
Of the 23 losses came in the form of another application for a patent, this time a patent about riding objects in-game. Game Freight reported this as having been served a final rejection where, as part of the claims regarding the patent, Nintendo had 22 of their 23 claims be rejected. But it turns out you only really need one for it to be a problem. Now, that last claim only needed to be reworked for the patent to be granted. So
amendments to the claim. The listing of the claims will replace all prior versions and listing of claims in the application currently amended. A non-transitory computer-readable storage medium having stored therein a game program, causing a computer of information processing apparatus to provide execution, compromising. Okay, controlling a player character in a virtual space based on a first operation input associated with selecting, based on selection operation, a boarding character that the player character can board. Oh, this is the flying one. To board the boarding character and bringing the player characters into a state where the player can move wherein. Okay, so this is the gliding shit.
So Nintendo is very much not defeated in America, even though 22 of their claims for this patent, weren't accepted. And there's actually a lot Nintendo can do. They can appeal the decision, they can rework the claims in line with feedback, or they could even try to convince the patent examiner that some of the 22 rejected claims are valid. And that all seems like a lot of work just to try to toss one more patent on top of the pile that they're accumulating. And
okay, hold on.
Appeal the
Back up.
So Nintendo...
Is this only for... like if you summon a creature and then you ride on the creature? Controlling a player character in a virtual space based on the first operation input in association with selecting, based on the selection operation, a boarding character. Okay, so having the player, controlling the player, and then selecting another character that you can ride. What other game does that? Fucking shit, dude. Like, you get an option of characters to ride. You get an option of mounts to ride in fucking World of Warcraft or like any MMO. Fuck, dude. Trying to think of like something else. Stuff you can like summon and ride.
was very much not defeated in America, even though 22 of their claims for this patent, weren't accepted. And there's actually a lot Nintendo can do. They can appeal the decision, they can rework the claims in line with feedback, or they could even try to convince the patent examiner that some of the 22 rejected claims are valid. And that all seems like a lot of work just to try to toss one more patent on top of the pile that they're accumulating in the US. But it's Nintendo. They're mercs legally. And it's actually wider than just them. And that's not just my opinion. It's directly from the mouths of people who actually make the patent decisions, because they are huge business. In January of this year, we got to see things from the perspective of the people who actually file these lawsuits. Automaton reported on the, quote, importance of intellectual property rights in the games industry at Tokyo Esports Fiesta 2025. This was attended by Capcom, Nintendo, Sega, Konami, and Koei Tecmo. So Sega and Konami's representatives framed these mechanical patents in a way that was very explicit, that it's about incentivizing developers to make new systems and then protecting those systems from being stolen.
Bullshit. They're just trying to protect their own fucking game. And that's all it is. Like, they don't want competition in the same area. That's the only reason Pokemon or Nintendo is going after Palworld, is because Palworld did it better. Palworld did it better. And they tapped into their audience. And they're catching flack like, oh my god, this game's so good. It's like way better than Pokemon. And it's the only fucking reason that they're doing this. It's not even... They're not even protecting anything like of value. It's a fucking you're throwing an object to summon a creature. It could have been easily replaced by a fucking card. Like, you throw a card and a creature comes out, like a fucking Pokemon or a Yu-Gi-Oh card, and the creature comes out. You know, it could be any medium that you throw something and a creature comes out, or riding on a glide, like using an animal as a glider or a vehicle. It's bullshit. It has nothing to do with creating new technology for game mechanics. It has everything to do with protecting Pokemon, and keeping their fucking audience. That's all it is. This is scummy. This is scummy ass shit. It's fucking pussy.
The high costs of development.
Do better in your fucking games. I've heard everywhere that Pokemon is going down the shitter. Pokemon's going down the shitter. Like, Arceus. People were saying Arceus sucks. Fucking, the new Pokemon games suck anyway. Dude, I played, Sword and Shield. It was boring as shit. Sun and Moon, boring as shit. Like, no one wants to play, people want nostalgia Pokemon. Let them play fucking Pokemon. You play as a kid, you go around, you look for fucking badges. The last Pokemon game I played that I actually enjoyed was Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And it is because it was a remake of the Hoenn region. It was Hoenn region on steroids. It was the best fucking Pokemon game I played so far. Hey You Pikachu is decent. But I don't have a cell phone, so I can't play like fuck, what's the Pokemon game? Pokemon Go. So it was a way for me to like fucking play Pokemon Go, but on the Switch, you know what I mean? But all these new Pokemon games, they fucking suck. They suck dick. Alright? I'm gonna say it right now. Huh? Me? I don't like Pokemon Go, but I like the capture mechanic. Dragon Tales, no cell phone? No, I don't have a cell phone. I'm on the computer all day. I don't have a cell phone.
Licensing.
Anyways, new Pokemon sucks, and Palworld fucking gave the fans what they wanted, and Nintendo's butthurt. They're freaking out because they're like, oh shit.
And the latter part in particular was the real value of all of this work, rather than potentially risky or expensive lawsuits. But patents are also a significantly more useful tool to have than just copyright alone. Capcom's representative echoed Nintendo's with the idea that they can protect their brands, right, from infringement or damage via patents, and it's basically another tool in their arsenal, especially when brands are capable of skirting full copyright, but, say, can capture the spirit of a game. So for them, it's not necessarily, at least they frame it, about stamping out competition or punishing smaller teams for trying to innovate by iterating in other games. It's more about protecting what they have from other companies, big or small, not necessarily great. And that's why Nintendo, for an example, files patents for every mechanic in their games, regardless regardless of the likelihood of them being granted. And it's that leaves the companies that breach those patents in hot water. Yes, in a way that can feel very direct and targeted, like what we've been talking about here, but also just in a systemic level, right? In that this is kind of how the system ends up working. They just make a point of filing patents for everything, right? Because they have then maximum coverage. That means, well, they can use those to further whatever ends they may have. And it's for that reason that, within Palworld, we're seeing all the fun business around gliding, in addition to the fact that the pals now spawn beside you instead of out of a ball. But okay, now that we've explored a lot of the situation, let's bring it all together. First off, this is not going to be resolved quickly. That's just not how this stuff goes, and especially
Yeah, it's
if
gonna take years.
expand to the US or further afield. Pocket Pair is clearly planning to take Nintendo on to the best of their ability here, despite Nintendo's legendary legal track record.
Yeah.
I mean legendary. All of their lawyers are John Wick type people. So if they can win, it will be a brilliant David and Goliath story. But with companies like Capcom and Sega very happy to explain that these patents are part and parcel of game development now, it's not necessarily going to be an earth-shattering change either. It's not going to be a case where Pocket Pair could win and then standards and all sorts of things in the industry would change. No, not really. The system's too big, there's too much money in it, and realistically speaking, like so many things, it inherently does favor the incumbents, because guess what? They actually have got the resources to do all of these patent filings, right? They actually have the resources to do those things. That means that, say, if everyone was to have an equal quantity of patentable innovation, who are the people who would be most able to act on that opportunity by using their resources? Is it the small little indie team, or is it the company with a humongous legal department?
Yeah.
It's obviously the latter, and that's how it inherently plays in the favor of the incumbents. That's why the likes of your
battle of wallets, man,
etc., are all happy to talk about how this is an important part of modern game development.
Yeah, bullshit. All it is protecting that money, baby, protecting that IP. I mean, to a stand, like, it's fair to say that you want to protect your IP, right? You don't want fucking Joe Schmo to come up and make a fucking Zelda game and use your name. Right, that's a fair point. You know, but a game that comes out, you know, that is inspired by Zelda, or a Zelda game, and has similar mechanics, like swinging a sword, or gliding with a glider, using a musical instrument to teleport, shit like that. That shouldn't be an issue. As long as the characters are different, the story's different, the theme, I mean, even the theme doesn't have to be different. Like, you could still have it in medieval times. All it is a fucking hero's quest, right? Call to action, all that shit. I don't know, man. I just feel like it's super scummy, and I feel like it's going to hurt a lot of creativity later down the road. But then again, creativity, restraints or constraints breed creativity as well. So, but eventually, like, everything will get ate up, right? Everything's gonna be under copyright, and now they're just gonna be like, hey, yeah, you're using this in your game, Mister Guy, Mister Joe Schmo. Now you gotta pay us money. You know, your game got fucking popular, and you're using our mechanic. Pay us $10 million. You can continue using mechanic. You know, I don't know. It's fucked. I don't like it. I don't like it a lot.
I suppose we'll just have to see what happens to PALs next. But anyway, as fun as all this is, if you want to get the lowdown on a very spicy new business model of...
Oh, I think they're actually, like, there's modders that are bringing back the old mechanics for Palworld, which is great. I think that's awesome. I think the best way to fight shit like that is to have your community make mods and shit. Like, having your games moddable nowadays is really rewarding for you as a developer and for your community, right? So the game gets extra time played, which is good for you. Like, you got more people playing your game, but now, like, they can add their own spin on it and shit, you know? Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's shitty what Nintendo's doing, but fuck, man, what are you gonna do?